Welcome back to Old School Eats. I am Derek, Old School Fournier, and today we're going to be talking about pork butt. Now, for pork butt in my family, it's one of their favorites. In fact, it's one of the barbecue meats that my wife actually likes. She's not a huge fan of brisket. She's one of the 7 people in the universe who doesn't think brisket's the greatest thing to eat, and I don't understand it. But she loves pulled pork. This particular time, I'm doing pulled pork for my son's indoor percussion group. So about 40 people, we're making a ton of pulled pork. So what I'm going to show you is how I prepare it. I don't do injections for pulled pork. You can. It's not what I do. I'll show you how I season it, how I use a crosshatch on the top, and how I prefer boneless rather than bone-in pork butts. And I'd love to get your feedback if you've had an experience one way or the other with bone-in versus boneless pork butt. I like the exposure that it gets to the seasoning. I think you get a little bit more flavor. And at the end of the day, I don't really care about pulling the bone out. So that's what we're going to do on this show. Looking forward to doing it with you. I actually prefer boneless. I know a lot of folks out there like the bone-in. I think they like the drama of the bone pulling out clean and all that, which is really cool. And maybe there's a good reason. If you have a good reason for why you prefer bone-in, let me know. But these boneless pork butts from Costco are fantastic. In fact, this was on sale, $8 off the package. It was only 37 bucks. So it was like 28 bucks, 29 bucks for 2 pork butts. I will just trust them. The other reason I like the boneless is I really do like being able to get seasoning inside as well. So I open it up a little bit and season all around. I don't inject. Obviously, that's something you could do. But I'm just going to season this with the trio that you've heard me talk about before, which are the 3 Cosmo Qs. They're Honey Killer Bee, the Hot Dirty Bird, and Dirty Bird. I'm going to trust them, put them in the fridge overnight, and then we'll be cooking them tomorrow. One other quick note. With these 2-packs, what I have noticed is the fat cap is not often as thick nor as consistent as if you get your pork butt elsewhere. You'll have that sort of bald area. On this particular 2-pack, both are the same. Oftentimes I'll see one of them will be consistent, the other one will have this scrape. I do score my fat cap. I know early on when I was doing this, a lot of people didn't, and they thought that the break of the fat was a good sign that it was ready to wrap. That's not how I do it. I do wrap my pork butt, but I don't wrap it tight. So I'll go over that when we're doing the cook, but I wanted to make sure that I showed you what this looked like. And also kind of, you guys know I use the bus bin for seasoning, but this is the inside where the bone would normally be. And I'm gonna get seasoning all in there, and I'm gonna truss it twice across to keep it as a roast. I know that Joe Yim, who's awesome, if you don't follow Joe Yim, definitely do that. He's done some stuff where he cuts this all up. I'm pretty sure it was him. I know he did this with brisket, but cutting these up so you get more bark, because a lot of the flavor's in that bark. I'm not gonna do that this time. I get a good bark on the outside, and then this is gonna get pulled and then recombined with some of the jus that comes off of it for sandwiches. Here they all are all tied up and seasoned. These will go in the refrigerator overnight. These are gonna be cooked on my Bark 2400 pellet cooker with a combination of cherry and apple pellets. We'll go through that cook tomorrow. I never claim to be great at tying these things up or trussing. There's a great video I saw online, but I have yet to master that. So just do your best. Try and keep these things held together like a roast, but I don't think it really makes a huge difference with pulled pork. All right, we're outside in the outdoor kitchen. I want to apologize. Someone actually commented, and I can't find it in the YouTube comments, so it may have been on Twitter, with a name for the outdoor kitchen. My man Malcolm's behind the camera. It was like the Meat Shack or the Meat Hut. It was whatever it was really good. If it was you, please help me out and send it again. But we're out here in the outdoor kitchen. I've got the pork butts that you guys saw me prepare earlier. You can see the crosshatch is still in here. My incredibly non-artistic trussing of these boneless pork butts is still holding them together. You can see that they've tacked up really nicely. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I do season the night before. I seasoned these the night before. These are cold, meaning they just came out of the refrigerator. The cook today is gonna be on the Bark pellet cooker, which is right over here. I've got 4 rack capability in this cooker, which is one of the reasons why I chose this and mix in Bark 2400. I've taken one of the racks out to create space. Because I have this amount of space, I'm gonna be able to cook all 4 of these butts with a drip pan at the bottom. My plan for this cook is to cook unwrapped until about 160, 170 when I get a nice render on that fat on the top, on the fat cap. Then I'm gonna pan these guys, throw some butter and some other random stuff in there. I'll tell you when we get it to it, probably some brown sugar, some seasoning, and seal them up nice and good and take them the rest of the way for the cook. But right now we're gonna get this pellet cooker loaded. All right, we're gonna load up the pellet cooker now. You guys saw this in the last video. Got a lot of space here. Got my paper towel. And because we have this space, we're gonna make full use of it by sort of laying these out a little creatively in the cook surface. Now, why would I do that? You're probably asking yourself. Because I don't want them dripping on each other and ruining the bark below. Now, is that really a big deal? Maybe not. But to me it is. So I've got my drip pan in here. It'll catch most of that drippings. These guys will go uncovered, like I said, probably 5 to 6 hours. I'll check temperature. And then I'm going to pan them. And when I pan them, they're going to go right back on these racks in the full hotel pans, which is exactly why I chose this cooker. We're going to check on the temperatures for our pork butt. They're moving along nicely on the pellet grill. On this particular pellet grill, and I suspect most of you have the same capability, this is the set point. I can actually, that's the set point. If I press it again, it gives me the actual temperature inside of the cabinet. It's holding 250 beautifully. I'm going to throw some more pellets in here, I think. Probably doesn't really need them, but because there's another couple hours on this cook, I'll go ahead and load them so I don't forget. But I'm going to check the temp of these pork butts right now, and then we'll load up some ambient probes. They look really nice. I'm going to get a napkin so I can pull that drawer out. Let's look at this guy down here. Those are looking pretty good. About 134 in the middle. About 132 in the middle. Pretty consistent there. My drip pan working nicely. These guys up top. 129. 148. Okay, so I'm probably going to want to move him around, which is fine. He's a little bit smaller anyway. I'm going to put some probes here. I've got my Signals 4 probe. So I'm going to throw those in here. I'm going to take the temperature of these pork butts up to around 160. The outside looks good. No need to spritz these. I know there's a lot of discussion about spritzing. I only spritz if things look dry, and I really want to get that fat on the top to render and get some bark. So I'm happy with it getting where it's going. I'm not going to spritz them at all. When I get those probes in, I'll keep an eye on them. When they get around 160, 170, I'll come take another look at them. And then if the bark is where I want it to be, then I'm going to pan them, throw some butter in there, a little bit of brown sugar, and then we're going to take it all the rest of the way. So I said in my previous videos, I don't overly rely on probes to monitor remotely, which is true. The more you cook, the less you rely on probes. But for pork butt, especially with what we're doing today, because I'm going to be doing some other cooking today, I want to be able to monitor this on my phone. So I'm going to go ahead and put these probes in here so I can monitor them remotely. You want to get into the center of the meat, so I'm going to go pretty deep on those. I am going to go down on this guy. These were exactly the same, so I'm probably good with just 2 probes, to be honest. Get those in there. Now those are set up. I will use this as representative of the top rack, and that is representative of the bottom rack, and I'll keep an eye on those. We're out at the Bark 2400. Our pork butt looks like it's come up to around wrapping temperature. We're gonna take a look. These guys are looking pretty damn good. That bark looks good. Got a good render under the fat. I think that's where I want it to be. Let's take a look at these guys down here. Oh yeah, look at that. That's what you want to see. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pull these probes. Shut that up. I'm going to temp them independently. About 158 on that one. A little lower than normal. 155 on that one, but I like the way this bark looks. This one's at 170. That one felt, I mean, that thing went straight through. All right, so we're gonna pan these guys up. And yes, I am mixing them, the smaller one with the bigger one. And no, I don't know why I'm doing that. I just sort of am. Shut this, let it retain its temperature. Hit with a little bit more of the rub as these guys Continue to cook inside this wrap. Absorb some more of that seasoning. This is Dirty Bird. I was talking to Malcolm, my cameraman, before we shot this scene, and he asked about the butter, and I don't do it all the time. It seems to be gaining more and more popularity. My pork is generally pretty well received. It's got plenty of fat in it, but these guys have relatively small fat caps. So I think the extra fat can't do anything but make it better. Not to steal from Sam the cooking guy, but fat is flavor. I am making an absolute mess of everything now. Should have pre-torn this foil, but I didn't. Now, one of the things you will see a lot of folks do is wrap their pork very tightly instead of in a pan. Now, I've never heard a real good explanation for why they do that. I heard an explanation that sort of holds some water, I think, which is, and I don't remember who it was who gave me the explanation, but they wanted to make sure that the pork didn't steam. And to be honest, I don't know functionally that it's any different, right? So, but if you have all this space in here, as the fluid renders out, the fats render out, you're sort of braising. Anyone who knows the cooking lingo better than I, please weigh in and let me know. And now we got them wrapped up. I'm using heavy duty foil. That's probably sufficient. Sometimes I double wrap them. I don't think we need to do that here. Take these guys, put them back on, and the joy of this cooker will become evident. If Myron's out there watching, or David, kudos to you. 2 full hotel pans, loaded and ready. We'll take these guys to about 203, 204, pull them off, let them rest, and get them pulled. Here's our pork butt out of the cooker. Now we're going to let it vent for a few seconds and then set it to rest. Then I'll pull it this evening. All of them finished about 204. This guy on the front left, a little bit ahead of the others. Here are 2 of the pork butts. After their rest, I'm going to take them off of this rack and drain that jus into a fat separator. Do the same for the other, and then we'll come back and pull these guys and see how they taste. I am Sans cameraman, so I'm going to do this one-handed. Remember the line, the butcher's twine that I put in here. I've cut that. I'm going to pull it out. And you see the fat over on the board here, the pseudo board. When I move these guys, they were quite jiggly, which means they should be quite good. Not sure why that's not coming out. There we go. All right, now I've got all the string out of there. I've got the jus over here in the fat separator. A lot of times people will just pull this right in that, and I don't like to do that. Let's see how this breaks down. Well, I tell you, I'm no expert, and I certainly can't taste it from this far away. But that is what you want to see pork do. Just break down most of that fat and the fat cap rendered out, which means I don't have a whole lot left in here other than what's making the meat moist. And this is exactly why I like the boneless. Now we got some great bark up here from the uncovered cook in the early stages. Now we're going to mix that all together and then reincorporate some of the jus, a little bit more rub, and we'll be good to go. Very pleased. Got great smoke ring in there. You guys can see that. Great smoke penetration. Remember, we ran cherry and then I think it was hickory at the end, pellets. But look at that bark. Looks fantastic. Now I'll have to taste it. This one may actually be even prettier. The bark was fantastic. Separation. It's great. Smoke penetration is great. The seasonings in the inside because of that boneless breakdown. Some great barky pieces over here. And the tenderness is just off the charts. Just hunks of this coming through. Very little effort. All the fat rendered down. That's some of the bacon. Some of the best part of the pork butt right there. Here we go. I'll grab a little piece and see how it tastes. Fantastic. So I'm not going to incorporate the jus right now because I'm going to heat this tomorrow for the sandwiches. So I'll incorporate it then. But separating that fat is a big game changer in my opinion. Great cook. We'll assemble these into sandwiches for the band kids tomorrow and have a great time. So we're finally going to do the final pieces of this pork butt video. Hopefully you've enjoyed the cook. That pork butt, as I mentioned in the video, was done in mass for my son's percussion group. I'm going to show some of the finished product. I've got some stills that I've thrown in the video, but one thing I want to go over is this jar is full of what I call pork jus. It's juice from the pork with the fat separated. I don't know if everyone does this, but if you don't, I recommend you do. When I pulled those pork butts off, because I had racked them in the pan, they didn't sit in that because that juice runoff has tons of fat, and fat is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but I don't want that much fat getting into my pulled pork. So what I do is I pull the pork butts out, as like I showed you in the video, and I pull that off and I do a fat separator. This jelly you can then bag with your pork if you vac seal it, put it in the fridge, and when you bring it back, it will enhance that pork flavor. My family actually likes the pulled pork the way it comes out without any sauce. Well, I like it that way, my wife likes it that way, my youngest son likes it that way. My eldest son likes to sauce it. I think you can always add sauce. I don't like to cook with sauce, but sometimes you can bring it back in a frying pan with a little sauce in there. But this juice is, in my opinion, secret sauce. So when I vac sealed the other giant pan of pulled pork, because I don't know how to estimate the amount of food to cook for anybody, and I always cook twice as much as I should, I put a solid tablespoon of that in with the vac seal. So if someone sous vide it, or if they microwave it, God forbid, though pulled pork holds up pretty well to a microwave, it comes back with tremendous flavor. So I'm going to create a little sandwich for you and show you that, and that'll be the pork video. All right, we've got our pulled pork that just came out of the pan over there. We got our brioche bun. Nothing fancy here. I know a lot of folks love putting coleslaw or pickles on their sandwiches. I do not. Obviously, you can do whatever you want. I am going to use some of the Cosmo Q cherry habanero sauce on this setup. Because, as I mentioned, I'm not a sauce guy, I will use it as a foundational element, like just a, almost like meat glue. So I'll put a little bit on both sides of the bun. Get them to smash together a little bit. Then I will take a little chunk of pork here. My wife always says I put too much meat on sandwiches. It's easier to not do that with these tongs, I have found. And then there you have it. Got a wonderful pork sandwich. You could put more sauce on there if you want, but we'll give that a try. We'll give this a try. Pulled pork with some cherry habanero sauce, a little drip coming out there, and that is not sauce drip. That is actual pork goodness, and that's what you want to see. Pulled pork is one of those things, it's a great thing to start with. Families will love it. It's hard to mess up. Even bad pulled pork is generally pretty good pulled pork compared to what you get at restaurants. That sauce, again, shout out to Cosmo cherry habanero. Not super hot, but has enough heat. I like the sweetness with the pork. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you learned some things. Love to hear your comments about it, how you do pork butt. Like I mentioned, I don't inject. I don't marinate overnight. I've seen people do it in crazy red soda and other stuff. Love to hear what you're doing and how you're experiencing it and what you do. So thanks for checking out the channel. Love to get the comments. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, do all those crazy things you're supposed to do, and I'll keep cooking.